Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? If you give me the microphone, it's scary because I might start singing. So I'm going to read my introduction here. My name is Katie Patterson, and I work for Walsworth, who publishes the Bozeman High School yearbook. Our speaker, Jim Ross, and I were both Hawks from the class of '83. Woohoo! We have some more class of '83 Hawks here, so we're one of y'all. Jim was the Bozeman High School yearbook photographer. He'll tell you the story. And I'm really excited to welcome him back to present his interesting career story as an aerial photographer for NASA. I would also like to thank Principal Mills and yearbook advisor Mrs. Swinford and the yearbook high school staff that helped make today's event possible. Thank you to Hawk TV for recording this presentation because we'd love to share it with other yearbook classes across Western Montana. So, please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jim Ross.
Hi, everyone. As she said, I'm Jim Ross, and I work for NASA. So, what does NASA stand for? You guys just shout it out. Who knows? Space Administration, right? National Aeronautics Space Administration. So, and what does NASA? When you think of NASA, what does it mean? What spaceships, rockets, astronauts, right? So when I applied for a job in the California desert for NASA, I was like, what the heck are they doing in the desert? We don't launch rockets in the desert. So when I interviewed and found out is that what we call ourselves, we're Armstrong Flight Research Center, and what we call ourselves is the first A in NASA. So we're the aeronautics part, we do the high-speed flight research. So we fly jet airplanes, and we test the jet airplanes to figure out how they can be worked into the commercial world so that it can benefit all of humanity. So that's the kind of things that we do. So you'll see a lot of different pictures. I'm just having to rotate up through here. If there's something that you see you have a question about later, just make a mental note and we can talk about it. I started photography when I was 7. My grandfather was a photographer, and he got me my first camera. So I started as a little box camera. I like the fact that you could capture a moment in time forever, not just with something in my head that just blew me away, that you could actually stop time and have that forever to keep an eye on and look at for the rest of your life. So I like photography. My dad my dad's Howard Pegg, there. Shout out for Howard Pegg. My dad was a coach at MSU football. So he would get me a pass. What he did was he worked a deal with the equipment director that I worked with him in the summers, and he would give me a pass to get on the field to take pictures of football. So I would take pictures, and I had just my little Instamatic camera, so I couldn't really shoot the action on the field. So I would shoot the games with just the players on the sidelines, get the reaction when they came off the field. Things like that was fascinating to me. So I would shoot those pictures. And then as the photography got more and more, my father built me a dark room we had a crawl space under the house. He built me a dark room there, so I had my own dark room to make pictures. So that was fun to do. And so eventually I got a camera that had film with it was like a knockoff Chinese lens. It wasn't anything great, but I could actually take pictures out on the field with the action that was going on with football. So I started doing that, and I wasn't comparable. There was all the people with the nice cameras and the nice lenses and everything. One of my students that's with me is Linda. Her mom was a photographer for the newspaper here in town, so she was somebody that was one of my idols when I was growing up. So I shot football through high school and college. I really enjoyed that. Need to big up. Okay, getting back. I really enjoyed sports. That was my big thing. And I also did animals, so I go to Yellowstone Park and shoot animals and things like that. So that was fun to do as well. Those were the two things that I wanted to do. When I entered college and finished college, my dad and I sat down and we kind of decided, he goes, you know, you really can't stay here in Bozeman. And I'm like, yeah, because Bozeman now is way different. Back in the 80s than it was now. There was like not the internet, so you couldn't just find jobs. There was newspapers, there was magazines, there was word of mouth, so it wasn't easy to find work. So we talked about where. It was like, well, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, LA. So I picked LA, decided that was a good place to go. So I went to LA and I found a job in the LA Times for Photo Lab. It was on Hollywood Boulevard, and it had 3 jobs open. It was color print, color transparency, reproduction, and customer service. So I applied for all 3. I had background in all 3 because in my college I worked for the photo services here, and I got that kind of background with everything because photography was something that was very interested in, and I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to learn all facets of photography, and that's what I ended up doing. So when I got there, I worked for that photo lab, and I eventually worked into Hollywood. So I did a little bit of Hollywood work. I worked with NBC, so I shot some of their shows that were in the late 80s. Met some different movie stars and things. Got a question?
Can you give us an example of a show you shot?
Yeah, I worked on some of the earlier ones, Night Court. I worked on Cheers, some of those earlier shows. There were a couple of TV movies with Warner Brothers. So I worked on the Warner Brothers lot, I worked on Paramount lot. I did that for about 2 years. I kind of found out that me and people weren't like a great match. I didn't really do that well with people. So I thought that that wasn't really something I wanted to do. So again, with the LA Times, I saw that there was an ad for a NASA photographer out at Edwards Air Force Base. So I went to a friend and I said, where is Edwards Air Force Base? And he said, it's about 80 miles from here. And I'm like, okay, that might work. So I called, they did the screening on the phone, and they're like, okay, yeah, come out for an interview. So I went out to the interview, and that's when I found out that that's what that we do out at Armstrong, was that we do high-speed flight research. So I got to see the airplanes, and I got to see how they operate there, and I thought, this could be fun. So I thought, hopefully I can get the position, and they called. I had a few other job lined up that I was thinking about, so I called my dad and we talked it out, and he said, the NASA thing looks like that's probably pretty good. And I said, yeah, I'll give it a try. So I decided to go ahead and take that job. We were doing the space shuttle landings, so that you saw a lot of the different space shuttles that went through. That was kind of the primary thing. We were the primary landing site for space shuttle landings until there were some other photos where you saw our B-52, a big gray airplane that had a drag chute behind it. Once we made that technology was a drag chute, they started moving the shuttle landings back to Florida again. So, but we were still doing our high-speed flight research at the time. And 2 years into it, my boss came to me and said, we were talking on the runway, and he was like, I can't wait to fly. And I'm like, do we have to? And he goes, what do you mean, do we have to? You want to fly? And I'm like, no, I don't. I said, I get serious motion sickness. And he goes, oh. He goes, well, when the opportunity comes, I think you should try. And I said, okay, I'll give it a try. So he ended up leaving, and we had a flight where we had the SR-71, which was the black airplane that you just saw. It's one of my favorite airplanes. Was flying behind a tanker, and that's how I shot that picture straight down. Was you'd fly in a tanker that refuels the aircraft, and in the back they have a window that you lay on your belly and shoot down as the airplanes come up to refuel. So I did that, and I got some really good photos. So everyone was excited that, oh, we got our next aerial photographer, and they're excited and saw the pictures. So within 2 weeks they had me in a jet, and I was like so nervous, and I was like, this isn't going to go well, but I wanted to do it anyway. So I started to learn technology, terminology, which I should have known that I didn't know. So we taxi out, and at some point he called for an unrestricted climb, which now I know what an unrestricted climb is. Then I did not know what that was. So we take off, we go rolling down the runway, he pulls straight up, and we go up to 15,000 feet. And my eyes are like rolling like a slot machine in my head. I'm hoping I'm gonna get 2 pupils and not 2 whites, but I got a white and a pupil. I was like, first was done, so I'm like, yeah, I'm triggered. That's not good. So we're kind of flying along. He goes, how'd you like that? And I said, yeah, that wasn't so good. So he goes, well, let's just kind of fly around. I'll let you fly the supersonic part, which was basically you just grab the stick and you ease the throttle forward and you watch the dial and you'll see that you're supersonic. So he let me fly that. And he goes, see, that was cool. And I said, you need to take the airplane back. And we got bomb at #1. So got sick right away off the bat. So he's like, okay, well, let's just kind of ease around. Maybe you'll feel a little better. And so we just kind of flew around a little bit. I was in a T-38 aircraft, the type that the astronauts fly. So we were just kind of flying around a bit. And then he goes, you want to do a loop? And I'm like, no, I'm good. He goes, no, you got to do at least one loop. So he does a loop. We had bomb at #2. Got sick again. So I'm like, oh no, this isn't good. So he goes, let's go look. At the time, there was this artist named Christo that had these yellow umbrellas along the freeways. I don't know how that's art, but at the time that was considered art. So he goes, well, let's go look at those umbrellas. And I'm like, okay. So we go look at the umbrellas. And I find out that test pilots like to look underneath, but that's not an easy thing to do in a jet, right? So how do you look underneath in a jet? Go back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. So he's trying to find the little umbrellas going back and forth and back and forth, and I'm sick #3. There's vomit #3. So he goes, all right, let's go back. And I'm like, yeah, let's go back. So we're headed back, and we're going by a town, and I go, is that California City? And he goes, yeah, why? And I said, that's where I live. And he goes, oh, let's go find your house. And I'm like, oh, okay. So he heads over there, and how do we find Jim's house? It's a test here. Yep, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. We got bomb at #4. So he's like, okay, let's just go back. And I don't even know if we ever find my house. I'm like, I think that's it over there, but it was like done. So we got back, and I told him, I can't do this. So I said, this is just too hard for me. So they said, all right, they were disappointed. So about a month later, one of our engineers, and she went through, you saw a woman from the SR-71 in a spacesuit. She was our backseat engineer that flew in the SR-71. She was the only woman who was ever in the SR-71 as a crew member. So she came to me, called me up to her office, and I didn't know what was going on. I was like, why does Marta want to talk to me? So I shot some things for her, and I was like, I don't think I messed them up, but I went up there, and she goes, come in and close the door. And I'm like, oh no. So I sit down, and she's like, I heard you had a flight. And I'm like, oh no, this isn't happening. It's like the worst nightmare. And she goes, tell me about it. And I'm like, it didn't go well. She goes, well, what happened? I said, I got sick. And she goes, well, that's not uncommon. Everybody gets sick on their first one normally. I got sick a lot. She goes, what's a lot? I said 4 times. She wanted to react. She was kind of like, but she was like thinking. And she goes, well, how long does it take you to recover when you get sick? And I said, about a minute or so. So she goes, well, our flights are average about an hour. So that's 56 minutes that you can take pictures. So I don't see a problem in it. And I'm like, well, yeah, yes. And she goes, well, what's the real problem? Are you afraid? Do you not like to do it? Is it something that scares you? And you're embarrassed? And I said, yeah, that's the one. She goes, I get embarrassed when I get sick. And she goes, well, the reason that I'm talking to you is there's 6 test pilots down the hall that asked me to talk to you because they really want to fly with you. So you don't need to be embarrassed because they're asking you to fly with them. And they understand that you have an issue, but they're willing to work with you and try to figure it out. So I said, okay. She goes, go home and think about it. And she goes, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does, we really think that you'll be an asset and it'll work for us to have you do this. So I went home and thought about it. It was at the end of the year. So in January, I came back and said, yeah, I want to do this. I'll give it another try. So I went in another flight. This time it was an F-18, and I was able to I got sick twice. So, 50% better. So I'm doing better now. So they said, okay, let's let you have time to chase an airplane. So 2 days later, they put me with a different pilot, and I chased an F-104, and I took pictures of that. And then I didn't get sick that whole flight. And I also realized the first 2 flights was with the same pilot. And I had a different pilot, and I'm like, oh, pilots fly different, so that's part of it too. They're not so jerky. This guy was like easy, smooth, and I'm like, oh, well, so that's easier. So I ended up getting through that, and now I've got 1,200 hours, and I'm doing a countdown to 1,000 flights. I'm at 984 flights. So it's been a great career. We also do stuff where we fly all over the world. We do stuff with airborne science, so you see some different animals and stuff. So I was able to get some of that. We did our U-2 aircraft flew down in South Africa, so we did a flight there, and we did some animals in the safari there. We saw the icebergs, was in South America. We had a DC-8 that went down there and flew over the icebergs to see how much they were depleting, so that they had a ground base, and then they go back like every 3 or 4 years and they do some more stuff. This one's actually James Ross Island. So James Ross got to shoot James Ross Island down in Chile, so that was kind of funny. After I took it, there was one of the locals like, I heard that there's some guy, Jim Ross, was on the plane. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. He goes, oh. He goes, you got to take a picture of your island. I'm like, yes, I did. So that was kind of a fun, different thing. Some of the different things, exciting flights that I've been able to do, we did when Endeavour was its final flight. It flew all over Los Angeles. We had about 30 different locations that they kind of wanted the airplane over. So we had like the Hollywood sign, we had Dodger Stadium, Angels Stadium, Disneyland. So we took off from Edwards, met them up over the coast in Malibu, and followed them through all these different areas in Los Angeles at low level. So it was kind of fun to see LA from, that level, and my pilot would just kind of tell me when we were going to be over. The funny one with that one was Disneyland, which I'm a big Disney person, so I was excited to get Disneyland. And we had a little bit of a break, so we're headed into Disneyland, and I can't see it. And he goes, it's right off the nose, and I'm like looking, and I don't see it. And then he's like, it's going to be there in 3, 2, 1, and he goes click, 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 and I even said that I hear it in the thing. And I knew what Space Mountain looked like, so I saw that right out the corner of my eye, and I literally got like 3 shots out before we were over, because you go so fast that it goes quick and you're gone. So that one I was able to get. The video person didn't, she was too tight and she didn't even see it, so she didn't get the video. So she was very upset about that. A couple weeks ago we just did the X-59. So it's an X-plane. The Lockheed built it from scratch. It's built out of a T-38 cockpit, an F-18 engine, and an F-16 landing gear, so it's kind of one of a kind. We've been trying to get it together, and our main test pilot flew that out of Palmdale, and we joined up over Edwards and did pictures of it. So it was kind of really exciting to have a manned X-plane. We haven't had a manned X-plane since 1995. We had the X-31, so having that airplane was really exciting. And he said he took off, and it just kind of, he wasn't sure. They got thousands of hours in the sim, but the sim versus actual hardware is never normally maybe the same. So he said once he got off the ground and started to lift, he just kind of had a nice sigh of relief as it did what it was supposed to do, and they flew it for an hour and landed. So that was a fun thing that we just got to do. So as far as the work, we just use standard cameras. A lot of people ask sometimes whether we have specialized cameras. We just use standard equipment and just shoot through the canopy. We have the fighter jets. We use an F-15 and an F-18. We have to shoot through the canopy. And we have a T-34 that we can slide it back, so we have the open air to shoot through. And we have a little glider that we fly, and it has a little window. You can slide the pocket open and point the lens out. So we have different aircraft that we use for different things. The high-speed stuff we use for the faster things, and then the glider and the T-34 we use for the slower things. So those are the primary aircraft that we use when we fly. We also do ground work. We shoot events. We shoot dignitaries when they come out, things like that. Everything that happens on site, we shoot. This was a school event that we did. Those are also fun. We go out and show the kids kind of what we do and how we do things. So those are kind of the basics on what we do. As far as the yearbook, that was kind of what she wanted me to touch on. So when I was in high school here, I didn't join the yearbook. I was like, I don't know much about yearbook. I like photography and I only did photography. So the yearbook photographers for the yearbook and the newspaper were struggling with photography. So the person that was in charge of the yearbook went to the photography teacher and said, do you have a photographer? We really need a photographer because we're backlogged and we're behind on everything. So he said, yeah, Jim Ross can do that. So she came to me and said, I need you to do this. Would you like to do that? And I said, sure, I'll do it. So I started doing it and we were way behind. So I would come in like in the evenings and work and try to get the yearbook caught up. And then we also had a problem where one of the photographer for the newspaper dropped out. So I picked up the newspaper too. And I don't even remember if I had a class. I don't think I was, I might have been in the class. I don't know if I was in the class. They just said, can you do this? And I was helping them out. So I finished the yearbook for them. My mom was a teacher here. She taught here from '76 to 2002. So we made an agreement where she could get me access like on the weekends and I would come in and develop film and print on the weekends just to try to get us caught up so the yearbook, we meet the deadline and get it out on time. And also so we could meet the deadline for the newspaper too. So I did the yearbook kind of not traditionally how they do the yearbook here, but I was a part of it and it was enjoyable. We have some of the yearbook people that I went to school with here today to join. So it was very exciting. That was kind of the turning point for me in photography, was when they would give me the assignments and I would go out and shoot the different things with the students and the events here. I really enjoyed that. So that was like, that's what I really want to do. So that's what I kind of decided that photography was what I wanted to do. So there's like 3 things that I want you to take away from me talking today. I think I still have some time. So when I graduated with a degree in photography, everybody wants to do photography. So that's like very difficult career path to take to actually earn money doing photography. So my dad, I was told him that I was kind of nervous about that, and he sat me down, and I always remember this, it goes through my mind. He told me that, you know, if you do your best and you become the best at what you do, you're always going to have a job because they want to work with the best. And I don't claim to be the best at what I do, but I do work hard at everything that I do, and I try to do the best at what I do. And in doing that, I was able to get a career. I've got 36 years with NASA now. So working hard and doing your best, even if it's not something, you know, I do the best with the aerial stuff, of course, but even if I have to go shoot at the chili cook-off, I'm going to do the best that I can do at the chili cook-off and get the best photos that I can get, and not just say, oh, that's just the chili cook-off. I'm just going to shoot a few photos and walk away. So I always do the best at everything I do with that. And also, the second thing is learn everything you can. If you want to be a photographer, learn as much as you can do about photography. Learn, this day and age, you want to learn about video as well. Even if you don't want to do video, it might get you a foot in the door. So what got me the foot in the door at NASA was I knew how to do color printing really well, and they needed a color printer at the time. But they also needed a photographer, but they wanted somebody to print. So that got me in the foot in the door. And also in Hollywood, when I got the job at the lab there, I had the 3 positions and I applied for all 3 because I had background in all 3. And they didn't believe me. They're like, yeah, and they made me prove it. And I'm like, okay, I'll prove it. And they said, okay, he does know all 3. And they said, we're going to have you do a color printer because that's what we really need. So learn as much as you can with social media nowadays. That's something you should know. Videography, photography, all of it, regardless of what you end up doing. It might get you a foot in the door if you have all these different skills. And then the final thing is, don't let yourself be the person that limits you from having a great career. I almost did that because I didn't believe that I could do what I really wanted. This is what I really wanted to do, and it's what I really enjoy doing. But I almost stopped myself from doing it because I didn't think I could do it because of the motion sickness, but I figured that part out. Do I get sick? Yeah, I still get sick. And it still happens, and they joke about it. They're like, oh, ha, 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 Jim got sick again. And it's like, yeah, whatever. And but you know, I've been able to do what NASA needs me to do, and I've been able to do it well. So don't let yourself stop you. You can do anything you want. You just have to let yourself do it. And if somebody gets in your way, just say, okay, that's okay. I'll do a different direction, or I'll work something else. But don't get down on yourself. Just follow your dream, follow your goal, do what you want to do, because you can do anything you want. Just don't let yourself stop that. And if somebody around you is telling you, hey, you should do this, and you think, no, I don't think I should do that, they might see something that you don't see. So you should just, you know, kind of believe them and try to, you know, take what they say and, you know, go with it and just keep working towards what you want to do. Because this is probably the last job that I should have ever been able to do. But I've done it. I've done it for 36 years, and I've been successful at it. So that's pretty much what I have to say. So. So we use Aperture Priority for the aerials, and we set it around 1,000 to 12,000. And since we're open sun, we usually end up with like F11, F16 for most of our stuff for that. Otherwise, with the other things, we just use a manual setting, and we usually shoot like the ground stuff. We'll shoot 250th at F11 or something like that. We do a lot of flash fill still. I know a lot of people don't do that, but it still helps with people, especially the flash will fill in the dark circles and faces and things like that. So that's helpful. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah,
Can you repeat that?
Oh, okay. She asked if there's any tricks or anything that I've used to prevent myself from getting sick. So a few years ago, I flew with one of our new pilots, and I got sick with him. It was a brand new, good first impression. I got sick right, and he knew it. So the next day, he sent me an email, and he said, you know, I got a guy that works at the test pilot school on the Air Force side that deals with motion sickness. Do you want to talk to him? So I said, absolutely, I want to talk to him. So I went over there, and he and I went over some things, and he basically said that, you know, it's the movement in your head that kind of triggers that. So he said, you want to, if you're in something where you're doing a lot of motion, you want to keep your head steady, and you don't want to move it around a lot, because when you move your head around a lot, that's what kind of upsets the inner ear and causes it to trigger. Once you get triggered, then it's kind of hard to get back out of the trigger, and it just kind of builds to the point to where you finally get sick. So he said to kind of, if you need to look, move your eyes and don't move your head so much. And I started doing that. And he said kind of keep an eye on the horizon a lot of the time. And that kind of helped out a lot. And I've only been sick like twice since I've had that. That was like 4 years ago. So that did help a lot. Yeah.
Jim, talk about a minute about how fast you're going and the G's and how heavy things are.
Yeah, so we have an 8-pound limit that we can carry because the G, so we do 5 Gs, so an 8-pound camera becomes 40 pounds under 5 Gs. So you can't really, and I found that out the fun way. So on my 4th flight, they had me do a drop out of the B-52, and I was doing video, and I hadn't done video before, but our video person got hurt. And so she taught me to do video. So I did video for an entire year from the chase plane. But I had it all, I was like nicely framed, and it was like ready for, they counted down for the drop. And it dropped down, and my pilot slammed the stick and into about 6 Gs to spiral around the thing, and the camera fell to my lap, and I couldn't get it up. It was just sitting there, and I'm trying to get it up. And it's going around and around, and I didn't get, I missed the whole entire thing. And he, you know, he was one of the pilots that was like, ha ha ha.
Favorite flight?
The favorite one that I did was definitely the Endeavour space shuttle through Los Angeles. It was a lot of work, but it was fun because I was working with my pilot, and he was like, okay, where do you want the Hollywood sign? You want it above above the set or you want it below the set? And we figure that out, and then we come up by Griffith Park, and he's like, I think Griffith Park would look better underneath. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do that. And then so it was like a whole coordination of doing all these 30 different areas around Los Angeles that we would do. So that was a fun flight to choreograph. So. Anything else?
All right, you all, thank you so much for coming. Thank you.